Welcome to this podcast. My name is Jonathan Leeming. I'm an author, a speaker, and a conservationist. In 2003, which is when it all started, I wrote Scorpions of Southern Africa. It's the beginning of 2019 today, and my revision of the new version of Scorpions of Southern Africa has just come out. And I'd like to share with you some of the lessons that I've learned along the way. And they're lessons in self worth, in pursuing ideas which not many people thought was a worthy cause, in believing in what you do. And it's important to share these ideas so that people that work in conservation, people that work with animals, and people that just want to try and make the world a better place, can learn from this experience that I've been through. And I suppose there's no better place to start than at the beginning. So I was born in the UK in 1970 to some very outdoor parents. And I think that's where the appreciation of everything that is the natural environment really came from. I can remember holidays were always sailing, fishing, hiking, swimming in streams and rivers, going to the seaside, exploring the natural world, but close up and personal. I can remember going to one of those old country houses. It was called Woolerton Hall, and it had like a natural history museum inside of it. And in the foyer, there was this giant lowland gorilla, all stuffed, of course, pounding its chest. Most of the animals were stuffed or preserved, or there were fossils there as well, some skeletons. But there was a live ant colony. And I can remember as a young child being fascinated watching the ants running to and fro, busy with their daily lives, oblivious to all the peering onlookers. When I emigrated to South Africa in 1984, all of a sudden there was a whole new world just waiting to be explored. The idea as a child of being able to walk in the environment with animals, with lions and elephants, with buffalo, with rhino, with giraffe, was a complete fantasy. But now I had access to a new world where spiders were bigger, scorpions were more venomous, and there were organizations that could help me get closer to these creepy crawlies. And one such organization was the Spider Club of Southern Africa. It was run by, at that time, Astrid and John Leroy. And it was through the help of people like John and Astrid and the other members of the Spider Club that my interest in creepy crawlies really began. At first, my interest was piqued by spiders, but no one was looking at scorpions at that time, and I soon kind of moved towards that direction. I gravitated towards an area which there were great opportunities to be had. If no one knew anything about scorpions, being that scorpion guy would open up a world of opportunities. As I got involved with various projects to do with scorpions, I just gained more and more knowledge. And the more and more I knew about scorpions, the more people asked me to get involved. I eventually decided to write an educational booklet on scorpions. It got a little bit out of hand. So I spoke to Astrid and I said to her, I have written this manuscript. I'm not quite sure what to do with it. Do you have any kind of advice? And Astrid said to me, speak to the people down at Strake and ask what they think. I polished up the manuscript and I emailed it down to Strake. They had a look at it and they came back quite quickly. I was quite surprised. And they said that they would like to publish a book on scorpions of Southern Africa. And it was a bit of a shock for me. I never saw myself as a writer or an author or even a conservationist at that stage. I was just someone who's very keen about a certain subset of the environment and was willing to put a little bit more effort into it than the average person on the street. Now, there's a big difference between writing something that no one else will read and writing something that you're going to unleash upon the world. And there was a lot of self-doubt in my mind about, was I the right person to write this? Was I even worthy of writing it? I had no academic background whatsoever when it came to scorpions. I was just very keen and extremely interested in these animals. But there was also the thought that if I don't do it, no one else is going to do it. So there was a bit of pressure from that side. So after I said yes, then the contracts came, and I think then it really sank in of what I've agreed to do. We had a framework. We had the number of pages we wanted to write. We had the number of words. I think it was 30,000 words. The photos we wanted. We could do distribution maps. The framework was there. We had a target, but the original manuscript to the first version of the book, there's a huge, huge difference. And I think that it was by this time that I realized that, you know what, maybe I am the person to write this book. And it's time to dig in and get stuck in and do the best that I can. From my original educational booklet to when the first revision came out was 2 years. And during that period, I think I finally realized the gaps in our knowledge. When you write something and you come across something that you're not quite sure about, or that there's a gap that you don't know anything about, you have to go find out. I spent a lot of time scratching around museums, university projects. At that time, Strake weren't interested in electronic images, JPEGs or GIFs or anything. So everything had to be in slide format. So I begged and groveled throughout the four corners of the world for pictures. I really had to sell my soul to try to fill the gaps. Another thing which is quite bizarre when you write books is when you write something, you know, you reread what you've written and you start to think to yourself, is it actually like that? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I've only seen one instance of that thing, and maybe it's not the normal behavior. So there was a lot of cross-referencing, trying to work out that what I was writing was was really fact, because there was nothing to really compare it to. There were some old university papers, there was some museum papers out there, which I tried to cross-reference with. But rewriting scientific text doesn't really give an enthralling account of any animal. It has to be rewritten in a way that's alluring to the reader, and in a way that verifies the beauty and the ingenuity of these creatures. The end product that I was trying to aim for was not just a list of scorpion names and pictures and where they live, but to actually, delve under the hood, to uncover their amazing life histories and biology. Not quite in a story format, but I wanted ideas to flow so people could have an understanding of what scorpions are, everything about them, their life history, and how they touched upon other parts of the environment. But I also wanted to include something about, if people were to conserve scorpions, then they have to understand what is in it for them. Why are scorpions important to a person? And I think it's a good question to ask. And there's not many field guides that actually answer it. And when you write a book, it's a very itsy bitsy affair. It starts out as one kind of base manuscript. And then the publisher asks you to change something or to add a bit of text here or to add a bit of text there. And it really kind of turns out into lots of little bits of text flying around being emailed. So you don't get an idea, what the final product is actually going to be like. And I can remember when I got the first layouts, it was an overwhelming feeling that, I've actually accomplished something, that something amazing is going to come out of this. The book looked fantastic. I loved it. The flow of ideas, the way the text was written, the tables. I tried to get the best pictures that I could. It was then that I got very excited about publishing a book. And I think it was probably the first time when I realized that people are going to read my words. They're going to read my thoughts. And, maybe they're going to be critical. So a good friend of mine in the USA said to me once that the only people that don't make mistakes are the people that don't write books. So, from the word go, I had an understanding that I'd done the best that I could. There's probably going to be mistakes. There's probably going to be observations which maybe I've misconstrued. But compared to nothing, Scorpions of South Africa was going to be a milestone in scorpion conservation. The feedback from the first revision was absolutely astounding. All those things that I tried to accomplish, filling in the gaps, trying not to make it just like a list of animal names, but really providing some kind of background to the animals. That really came out in the text, and a lot of people that reviewed the book mentioned that it was an easy read. The conservation issues came out very nicely, and it would do scorpions a world of good. Something I didn't really think about is that, pre 2003, if you had a look at any of the natural history books that were on, various creatures, scorpions were sadly lacking from those books. After my book came out in 2003, I started to see that scorpions were being featured in other books. So there was this amazing knock-on effect, which was very apparent. And when I read the words in other people's books, I could see my words in those texts. And it wasn't from I wrote that text, you've stolen it from your point of view. It was from that, I've planted the seed, this little tiny idea in people's minds that scorpions do have conservation value, that they are important in the world, and that people do care about them. And that seed was growing and growing through the work of other people. And when you write a book, there's this natural progression that people want you to talk about the book. So there was plenty of opportunities to speak in front of people. But I was a little bit shy in those days. My speaking wasn't as good as it is now, definitely. I've come a long way since then, I must say, and I've learned a lot along the way, but we all have to start somewhere. Reid Hoffman of LinkedIn said, if you're not embarrassed about the first version of your product, then you've shipped it too late. And although I wasn't embarrassed about my speaking, it wasn't an easy thing for me to do, and I realized that I had a long way to go. And as wildlife people, we have this thing that we want to know more about the animal. We want to be known as the authority, but we hate standing up in front of people and telling anyone about, what we know. It's like we'd rather scratch around deserts getting stung by scorpions and chased by rhino than stand up in front of a group of people. And in today's conservation world, you cannot do that. And a bit of advice to everyone listening. You don't have to know everything about an animal to be a great speaker. If you know a lot about the animal, that's great. If you can speak well, that is such a benefit because there's so few wildlife people that are also great speakers. And of course, the more speaking you do, the better you get, the bigger audiences you get to speak at, and the more prestigious the events. When I speak at an event like a conference or a meeting or give some training, people often say, wow, you speak so well, so much passion and so much energy. But this has been built up over many years of experience. I'm not a natural when it comes to speaking. It takes hard work, it takes effort, but it takes continuous talking in front of people, accepting speaking engagements. It's a constant effort that does reap rewards. Well, the book definitely generated a lot of interest when it came to scorpions. In fact, not just scorpions, but all of the other lesser known groups of animals, the insects, the spiders, the millipedes and centipedes. It sparked a lot of interest, and I can see it now. When I wrote the book back then, there was only 2 or 3 people that really knew anything about scorpions in southern Africa. If you wanted a scorpion to be identified, there was very few people who could actually do it. Today, there's a lot of great people. There's a lot of knowledgeable people all around southern Africa. And it's nice to let them, run by themselves. Let them do their own thing. Let them explore the world. I don't have to be the go-to guy for every identification, for every question on scorpions. We've got some great people coming up, some amazing talent out there. South Africa is very lucky in that respect. One of the areas that I like to focus on is the medical side of spider bites and scorpion stings. I speak at a lot of medical conferences. I address doctors. I consult for the Poison Information Helpline. I speak for the Swaziland Anti-Venom Foundation at their conference every year. And it's a very worthwhile pursuit. I also didn't realize how far-reaching these books actually are. I had a complaint from someone in Heathrow Airport that said that my book wasn't available in the bookshop. There was a mistake on the wavelength of ultraviolet light. It was quoted in the book as millimeters. It was supposed to be nanometers. I don't quite know where that mistake came in. But I got this like 8-page email from the Royal Observatory explaining the whole wavelength of ultraviolet light. People bought the book in Japan and in China, in Europe, in the USA, all over the world. And it was something that I really didn't expect. And from a local perspective, there was a lot of good that came out of it. I had some great feedback from a lot of people. I think I've made fans all over Southern Africa. It wasn't just about the subject of scorpions, I don't think. It was the underlying tones of the book, which really harped on the conservation value of those neglected creatures out there that are they're largely overlooked. I've done well writing on the success of scorpions of Southern Africa. I've given courses, I've spoken in 11 different countries around the world. I've been speaking about scorpions for about 20 years. Even though people know me for Scorpions of Southern Africa, I've actually written 9 books, and I'll tell you about that a little bit later. The first book sparked it all off. Obviously, Scorpions of South Africa, really kind of catapulted myself, I suppose, into the limelight, but I think it more into the spotlight, as there was more of a responsibility to carry on my work with scorpions. So I gave courses on scorpions and spiders. I got thrust into the whole, if it bites me, will I die type of genre. What happens if you get bitten or stung by a spider or scorpion? And I still do a lot of that. There was the conservation walks. I used to do a lot of work in the Sabi Sands, running around places like Londolozi, Singita, Sabi Sabi, Ulasaba, and many of those beautiful lodges down there. I made great contacts. I had so many amazing opportunities come my way, and I grabbed them with both hands. I think what most people reckon is that once you write a book, the fame and fortune just like pours in. But it doesn't work like that. After you write the book, that's when the hard work actually starts. That's when you've got to get out there. You've got to put yourself out there. You've got to put your foot in many an open door. My 2019 revision of Scorpions of Southern Africa just extends the original purpose of the book. It's more conservation focused. I've taken a couple of sections out, which I wanted to add more valuable information. I've tried to kind of plug the gap between, the reader's ideas and perceptions about scorpions and actual perceptions themselves. So I've tried to grease the relationship between people and scorpions. There's a brand new chapter on identification. There's a bit about scorpion sting symptoms. And of course, there's a lot more species. I hope the reader will enjoy it and they'll see value in the additions which we've put into the new book. It would have been nice to have covered all scorpions. I've spent the last 50 years running around Southern Africa, taking pictures of every single scorpion species out there. But that's a mammoth task. And I think where we are with the 2019 revision will really kind of carry the torch over to the next kind of generation of authors who are going to carry the book even further. So for me, the next major project that I've been working on is really an extension of the ethos of Scorpions of Southern Africa. It's a book entitled One World, and it focuses upon people's values and beliefs towards aspects of the environment. It's got a lot to do with sustainability, a lot to do with why we're in this position that we're in right now, and it's about how can we make the world a better place. There's new websites. I've got some great workshops around the content. I've got a personal development program, awesome keynotes. It's the first book that I've written where in my mind I knew exactly how to apply the contents of the book, and I'm very proud of it. I think it's the best work that I've done yet. One World is completely self-published. The publishing industry today is quite tough, but that's fine. I can self-publish it. I've done it before. I'll do it again. And if you go to jonathanleeming.com, you'll see all the information about all the new things surrounding the contents of One World. You'll find lots of free downloads on the website, and there's an online workshop tool which I hope people will use. And if you go to scorpions.co.za, that's the more conservation-focused activities. That's the courses, the first responder courses, the walks that I do, the lectures, the keynotes, and all charity things that I get involved with. I think just to close off, thank you for buying the original copy of the book. The new version of Scorpions of Southern Africa is out. I hope you enjoy it. I sincerely hope you learn a lot. I hope it really allows you to understand not just scorpions, but other aspects of the world. And if you want to join me on my next adventure, go to jonathanleeming.com or scorpions.co.za. Check out the keynotes, book me to speak at your event, come on one of my courses or my walks, and together we can make the world a better place.